Good evening. I'm Kavisha Vilatkamua. Nirushi, I think, hope you can hear me, right?
Yeah, we can hear you, Kavisha. Go ahead.
On behalf of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, I would like to welcome you all to the webinar on Personal and Professional Strategic Planning for Year 2022, a webinar organized by CA Sri Lanka CPD Unit. This session will focus on strategic planning for businesses and individuals, importance of having balance between personal and professional goals, mechanism to evaluate goals, tips to manage time, work-life balance, and KPIs effectively. Our speaker for this evening is Mr. Sarinda Unambue. Mr. Unambue is the CEO of Mars Creda and a member of the Mars Apparel Board. He is a committed conservationist and champion of environmental sustainability and sits on Mars Sustainability Steering Committee. A committed change agent and a key driving force behind the Work From Anywhere initiative at Mars, he strongly advocates flexible work policies and empowering women in leadership roles. Mr. Unambue has walked the length of Sri Lanka twice and ridden a bicycle around Sri Lanka 4 times to raise funds for 2 separate charities he co-founded, Trail and Wheels for Wheels. He is a published wildlife photographer and is passionate about physical fitness. He believes a healthy, active body is key to a healthy, creative mind. In order to make the session more interactive, we plan to conduct the webinar as a Q&A session. Today, this webinar will be hosting by Ms. Niroshi Sirivansa, the Head of Member Relations of CA Sri Lanka. We have allocated a time towards the end for the questions of the audience, so please type your questions on the Q&A section or chat for the convenience of the speaker and the host. Without a further delay, I would like to invite Ms. Niroshi Sirivansa and Mr. Sarinda Unambue to take over.
Thank you, Kavisha. I trust you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, I would like to wish everybody, Sarinda and all our participants, a very happy New Year, happy 2022. So as Kavisha mentioned, we will do this as this session as an interactive manner. And if you have any comments and questions for the speaker, please type it on the Q&A section or else on the chat option, then we can read it out to Sarinda. So before I go for my set of questions I have for Sarinda, I would like to know from you, have you set any personal goals for 2022? I know the answer yes, but would you like to share, or can you share those with us?
Firstly, Roshi, I want to thank you all for inviting me, and thank you very much for that introduction as well. When I read the questions that you were sending me, yes. So to answer your question that you just asked me, for 2022, nothing specific. And I'll tell you why. Because I don't believe that people stick with their New Year resolutions. Invariably, everybody goes and joins a gym. They start a diet. They decided to go to, I don't know, pay more time to their spouses or whatever it is that you decide to do on the 1st of January. By the end of January, you have forgotten and gone back to your old habits. It's, I think, proven that about 70% of all New Year resolutions fail. So I'm not a big New Year resolution person. But the one thing that I have always done, and this I had done from a very young age, from the time I was about 5 or 10 years old, I think I always had a plan. And as I have grown old, I have kind of fine-tuned that plan. So what I do is every year becomes an opportunity for me to look at my plan again. I do that pretty often, but I look at my plan again and see whether I'm on track. And invariably, this will evolve. So it's important us as human beings don't stick to one track and say that's all we're going to do for the rest of our lives. And as you go along, life evolves and you have different aspirations that come your way, opportunities that come your way. You may decide to take a deviated route. And that's what I do. So while I don't have a hard and fast set of rules for or targets for 2022, I certainly will be monitoring to see whether I'm on track against my life plan, which I have had in quite detail.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, I have put 7, which is on my fridge. I can only remember 4 of it. Like, I can't even remember all 7. So as you mentioned, planning is the key. So to start off, why is it important why do you think it is important for us to have personal and professional goals every year?
It's strange that an accountant is asking me that question.
I'm not an accountant.
Okay. But we're talking to several accountants here and they must be laughing at us. But I think it's important that an organization and an individual has a direction that you want to head into. Organizations especially, I mean, we used to be in the practice of having 10-year goals and 5-year goals and targets and visions and strategies and all those things. But now organizations have tended to look closer because there's so much dynamic change that's going on. But to me, a directionless ship is a dangerous ship to be on. And as an individual and an organization, you should have a North Star. You should have some direction that you're shooting towards, and then a strategy built around getting to that. But what's important is that when we come up with these strategies, now I can remember when I started work about 300 years ago, we used to come up with a strategy and the strategy was written and you had to follow it like, like following a set of religious rules. But now the environment is very dynamic, especially if you worked in the last 2 years, you never knew what the next week was going to hold for you. So it was really important that while we had this directional goal that we were going towards, that we also were able to adapt and change as necessary in a dynamic environment. Mm-hmm. So while you have that goal that you're shooting towards, how you get there may be different. And that you have to be able to recognize early and take advantage of those things as soon as possible. You can't let the wind kind of take you where you want to go. You need to make sure that you're guiding your sails so that you're catching the wind to go in the right direction.
That's right. So as you said earlier, the planning is the key. So what do you consider with your experience? What do you consider when we put together an effective personal plan? I mean, we know about the business plans, the KPIs and whatnot, the performance, but for personal planning, what do you consider?
So I think it's important that each individual has an idea of what they want to achieve in life. Mm-hmm. What is your goal in life? And lots of people, what they do, and I have, I do a little bit of coaching. Well, I do a fair amount of coaching with teams at MAS and people. And what I always find is a lot of younger people, especially, their goals are very linked to organization. Mm-hmm. They are narrow focused. They're saying, I want to be a general manager on this day. I want to be a director by this time. I want to be something else by some other time. And all their ambitions and their goals tend to be linked to their career. I tend to look at things a little differently. And what I've done here is I'm going to share something very personal. This is a book that I carry with myself. This is on the cover is the last verse of the poem Invictus. But what I have is here, I don't know if you can see that, that is my plan, right? Oh, and wow, basically what it is it's about having a life well lived. So for me, it's not saying I want to be it never was about becoming a manager on a particular day or general manager on another day or having this much money in the bank on a particular day. What it was I linked my plan to the quality of life that I wanted to have. And my life aspirations, what kind of life did I want to have? And what I felt was, once I had that guideline, everything else, I would benchmark against that. Like, for example, let me say something. I want to travel, right? So to be able to travel, you have to have the flexibility of time. You have to be able to have money. You have to be able to have the ability to take time off. All I just said flexibility of time and repeated myself, but money and time are two things that you need. So the fact that I want to travel, if I didn't have money and time on my hands, that meant that my path that I was heading wasn't going to get me to that ambition of being able to travel. Now, travel is just one thing that I have wanted to do. But there are several things in my life that I have set time for. Like, for example, it's very important for me, my relationship with my sons. So how much time am I spending with my sons? How much quality time am I spending with them? So what I have done is, for me, my life strategy hasn't involved steps along the path of my career. I have almost looked at my life and then used my career to get to those targets. I don't know whether I'm making sense, but if I could show you these diagrams, it'll probably make sense, because I have had these aspirations have been fairly clear, and always, I think for the last, when I was in school, for example, I wanted very simple aspirations. I wanted to play cricket for my school. I wanted to play rugby for my school. I wanted to do athletics for my school. It all revolved around sports. And I achieved those things. Then after that, I wanted to go to university because I felt like university was a stepping stone to my future. I managed to do that. And then after that, once I started working, I set targets for what I felt like was important to me to have a happy life. I failed miserably in some areas. Miserably.
Okay.
Some areas have been utter failures. But at the same time, by and large, I have been able to direct my life and take decisions to change careers, to take new opportunities within organizations, to take risks, not to take risks, to invest, all those things based on, am I getting to what I want to achieve in my personal life?
Okay. So setting up realistic goals.
Realistic goals,
there.
and also not going. See, sometimes what we do is the term they say, you miss the woods for the trees. You don't see the jungle because you're looking at each individual tree. So rather than looking at the individual trees, I have focused on the jungle. I said, okay, I want to enjoy this jungle. So how I enjoy it and how I see it becomes a more holistic picture rather than narrow focus on each tree.
Okay. So the next question I'm going to ask you is actually, it's very much connected to what you're talking about. So how do you get that balance between the personal and professional goals? In a way, you explained it loosely, but we tend to focus very much on the professional goals or business goals, but not on the personal. How do we have that balance?
So I think professionally, my goals have always been linked to, again, as I said, I've looked at the bigger picture, but professionally, what I've done is, like, say, they've been much shorter term goals. For example, that is something that I may look at the start of the year and set myself a set of goals for the quarter. For example, this quarter, I'm focusing on, I have given myself a set of goals on the professional side to visit all the plants within the Krida cluster, spend a minimum of 2 days at those plants, and also each, right, at each plant, and to be able to talk to small teams and, give them an idea of what our vision is of where Krida can be in the next 5 years. So those are little things that I have set myself as target for this quarter. I'll set myself another set of targets for the next quarter. And that will change, because what I'm doing is I'm looking at what is the need right now. We had a cracking year in 2021, and I need to ensure that we are on the right track for 2022 as well. So it's important that people aren't fatigued by what happened in 21. So I'm setting myself a target for personally getting involved to motivate people and get them fired up to take this year on as well. So professionally, I tend to focus on those trees, on the individual targets that we need to go for. But personally, it is very different. Personally, I'm looking more holistic, more quality of life, quality of my relationships, my health, which has been a bloody disaster. I just had a massive bypass, and so so there are things that will derail you. But it's important that you get back on track and you go down that road. So that's what I tend to do. The difference is my life would be, or personal would be big picture, and professional would be short, bite-sized, manageable chunks.
Okay. I mean, why do you think that we always prioritize the professional life, but I know it's all bound by KPIs, and again, the objective is what we have to achieve, but personal goals we never prioritize.
That's because we are very...
Any thought on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I have lots of thoughts on everything. I'm very opinionated human being. I think we are very hell-bent on trying to impress society, impress people around us. So invariably, we measure our success by our titles, by the car we drive, by where we live, and all that is linked to your career in most cases. Mm-hmm. So I really believe that sometimes we measure our success by not how much money you have at home and what kind of life you have and, the quality of your life, but what's your salary, what's your title, have you achieved director status or general manager status? I was like that for a period in my time when I was a lot younger. Okay. But I think that is that you lose track of what you really want to do. Then it becomes just a case of like trying to achieve. You feel sometimes that you're benchmarking yourself against all kinds of different people whose circumstances are very different to yours. Friends in my close friends, for example, in the organizations they were working in, some of them were directors by the time they were 26, 27 years old, but it could have been a family company owned by their father. So he's a director. I'm working at John Keys where there are 10,000 people and I'm a manager and I'm like, oh my God, my friend is a director. So we set ourselves unrealistic expectations sometimes and then get very disappointed. Yeah. So I think it's important that we see, what do you measure your success by? What is your barometer for success? Is it your title? Is it your car? It could all be that. Each individual is different. For me, it wasn't that. It was a quality of life. Am I doing the things that I want to do? Riding bicycles.
Yes, and walking the length of the country. But I like the term a lot younger. As you mentioned earlier. So you sort of answered this in I think with one area. So how do we set realistic personal and spiritual goals? I think that is important for the quality of life. So what are the aspects, as per your opinion, that we should consider when we are setting those?
The personal side of it, I think, again, as I mentioned earlier, you got to think of what you want in life. Spirituality is a completely different ballgame, right? So there are lots of people who are very religious and they base their goals by living the guidelines of their religion. I am not at all religious. I don't believe in religion and I don't believe in organized religion. Having said that, I go to church, I go to temple, I have been to mosques, I go to kovils because I find them very peaceful places. They're very peaceful places and also it makes me feel, when you go to those places, you feel that you're a part of something greater than you as an individual. You're part of a bigger part of the universe. My choices of not following a religion are very personal, and I don't want to, be preaching to anybody here about why I believe religion is a waste of time. That's my personal view. But for me, spirituality is being conscious that we are a part of a greater universe, that we are a part of a greater system. So how we fit into that system, how we contribute to that system, how we contribute to the world around us, how we play a part in the world around us, that becomes something that becomes a very individual choice. So some people, they will follow the rituals of religion, they will follow the rules of the religion, and they will live their life by that, and then they will feel fulfilled when they achieve those. You go to church or you go to kovil or mosque or temple or whatever, you listen to sil or whatever, and you feel like you're, spiritually uplifted. My idea of spiritual upliftment is having a good stiff drink. And
okay.
It's a different spirit altogether. But at the same time, I'm very conscious that we are a part of a greater universe, and that we have a role to play. And what we do, how we act, how we behave, has a ripple effect on the world around us. So, being a good person, being a person who's spiritually aware and kind, fundamentally kind, and a good contributor to society, to me is important. To others, it may not be, but to me, it is.
Okay. So, as you very correctly said, we do have a set of resolutions that we do at the beginning of the year or on the last day of the previous year. And some of us, I think this is common to all of us, some of us only revisit those the next year when we are thinking of the resolutions. But you very correctly said your planning works. I really wish I can read what you have on that book. So as you say,
I'll
you
send you a
mentioned
copy
about
of it.
That's great. You very correctly said that you would like to, or you are evaluating it periodically. So could you tell us more about that? What is the mechanism that we also should have? I think that's somewhere that we all are struggling as human beings. So how can we evaluate that, and what is the mechanism you are using?
So I think circumstances change. The world is a dynamic environment, and you can't live by one set of rules and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and then have COVID hit.
That's right.
How many people changed their life direction and plans, and everything turned on its head when COVID hit? So what did we do? Some of us just curled up in balls and said, more, and just like, what am I going to do? And held their head and were crying in a corner. Other people looked at the circumstances and thought, okay, this is what I have to change. This is what I have to do. I had to cut down on my expenses. I had to cut down on this. I had to make sure that I'm focused on getting some kind of income from somewhere. Whatever it may be, we have to change those. So while you have this big picture in your mind of where you want to get to, it's really important that, and also as human beings, we change. I'm not the same person I was when I was 20, thank God. But and I'm not. So as we continue to change as individuals, that goal that we set ourselves in our 20s or 30s or 40s, or in my case, my 50s or whatever, it can change. So it's important that you don't. Now, what I aspired to achieve when I was 20, most of it I have achieved and finished. Now, what if I look back on my life and said, I have achieved everything that I want to achieve? And most of the targets that I had set myself and in my early 20s, I had achieved in my late 30s. So what if I stopped at that point and said, I have achieved what I want to achieve? What kind of human being would that make me? The way I see it, Niroshi, you're either moving forward or you're going backwards. There's no staying in one place. The world is moving, everything is moving around you. You have to either move forward or you're going backwards. So once you find that you have achieved the goal or you have come close to where you want to be, then it's time to reassess and reevaluate and go forward. I'm 50, I'll be 58 this year, good grief. And when I think of my life now, I'm looking forward to the next 25, 30 years. According to my cardiologist, with my new pumps in my heart is supposed to be good for another 35 years. So I'm hoping the rest of me is also good for another 35 years. So I'm making plans now, because I don't want to say, okay, I have achieved this, I have achieved that. I have achieved a lot of things that I have marked out in this book. But having said that, now it's time for me to set myself some new targets, something to look forward to, something to achieve, something to stretch myself physically, spiritually, mentally, everything. So I'm looking at what is my next career option. I don't want to retire at 60. I don't want to retire at 65. I want to continue doing something that I'm motivated by. Is it going to be the same thing? Maybe not. I don't want to do the same thing. I get, I probably have now run out of, I will probably run out of things to do at 65 in the same job where I get sick of it. But if I don't get sick of it, I'm still loving it. I love what I'm doing right now. If I'm still loving what I'm doing at 65, I'll continue doing it. So I think it's important that we continuously assess. In an organization, you set yourself a target. When you achieve that, what are you doing? You're setting another target.
Yeah.
Same, pretty similar with life as well. We have to recognize that we're dynamic human beings and that we're living in a dynamic environment and continuously adapt, continuously change.
Yeah, that's true. So you are a very active person. You do zillion different things. Tips to manage our time and how to plan our days effectively, because I know you do it really well.
So the most important thing there is don't think of yourself as being absolutely important to make something happen. You have to learn to delegate.
Yeah.
As you get senior in an organization, if you try to micromanage, you won't have a life. You need to be able to have a team around you that's going to support you, to be able to give, you have to give them responsibilities, give them complete authority to do what they are doing, have faith, have trust, have confidence in their ability, and let them do it. If we as individuals have to do every single thing around us and want to control everything and want to have everybody around us, and, you know, especially this work from home thing, and we can talk about that a little later, but when you're relinquishing that control, a lot of people like to see everybody in front of them in their office. Absolute bullshit, because most of the time people are seated in office and waiting, and they're on Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and, you know, whatever they're up to, or they're chatting with their girlfriends or boyfriends or mistresses or, you know, whatever, you know. So I think it's really important that you give up that mindset of control. Has to be relinquished, and we have to learn to trust. And don't measure a person on how much time that individual is spending at a desk or behind a computer or whatever. Measure them on performance. There are some people who can finish a job in 15 minutes. Somebody else may take 2.5 hours to finish that job. So
yeah,
what I'm trying to say here is that if we want to have more freedom to do the things that we want to do, have better balance of our lives, one, take all your leave. I wish I could see people putting their hands up here, because I used to ask this question in my office. Whenever I went like to one of the offices or something like that, I said, how many people here have taken all their leave in this year, especially with the end of the year? And some people very proudly saying, Mama leave var naha me avurudde. You know, and I said, Patagona, why are you not taking your leave? You're not going to get a bloody award just because you didn't take your leave.
That's right. Yeah.
It's ultimately about the work that you do. That is what's going to get you your promotion. That is what's going to get you your career progression. Not because you didn't take leave, you're a damn idiot. There are 20 days of leave or something like that. And I'm going to tell you all a personal story. When I joined MAS 21 years ago, my final interview was with the board of MAS audits. And Mahesh Amalian, chairman, who you all would have heard of, I'm hoping. Mahesh asked me a question. He said, Sarinder, we'd like to offer you this job. Is there anything about the way you work that we need to know? And I hadn't got the job yet, right? I hadn't even got the job yet. I said, yes, Mahesh, if there are 21 days leave allocated to me in a year, the chances are I'm going to take 22.
Okay.
He just looked at me. And I said, Mahesh, I take my personal time very seriously. And don't worry, the job will get done, but I'm going to take my time off. I'm proud to say that in 21 years of MAS, I have not carried forward a single day of leave. Not one single day. I have used every day of leave I have had. And I'd like to think that in a smaller context of Sri Lanka and, you know, in a small environment, I've done reasonably well in that small environment. Small pond, medium-sized gemba. You know? But I think what we have to look at is that is applicable across any size of organization, any size of environment. We have to realize that we have the ability to balance our lives out. You have leave, and you live in Sri Lanka. We have the most number of public holidays on the planet.
Yes.
If we can't balance our time off, there's something radically wrong. We have to do that. It's our responsibility. So you can't blame anybody else for not being able to balance your time out. You have to balance yourself. If your boss is not giving you leave, get another boss. Go in another job.
I just made a note of that.
Is your boss listening?
I might have to mention this conversation later to my boss.
Yeah, show the record.
So this actually leads to my next question, Sarinder, on the work-life balance. The context now, some are, I mean, we all started working from home, and then some of us are now working in office. But when you talk to people who are working from office, most people, something that they don't like is when you're working from home, they say the hours are unlimited.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's because of that. Some people would like to work from office. Then at least at some point you can leave the office, go back to your family and whatnot. So what tips do you recommend on having that work-life balance?
So
apart from taking all the leave.
So Niroshi, we had this issue coming up as a very real issue at CREDA. And what we started doing is we use Microsoft as a platform. So Microsoft has a feature where you can go into it and look at all the time spent on meetings, who's at meetings, who's doing what at any given time, how much time is spent. And we found that there were 3 departments that were spending the most amount of time on meetings. And if you looked at the number of people attending those meetings, 55, 65. Now, you tell me on a Zoom call like this, 65 people on the meeting, right? Is it productive?
Yeah,
how many people will be talking? Maybe
That's
4,
right.
5, 6. So what we started doing is we started putting some rules down.
Okay.
Some very strict rules down. No meetings before 8:30, no meetings after 5:30, no meetings on public holidays, no meetings on weekends, no disturbing people in the night and demanding response to emails in the night. So we put a whole set of rules down. And now we can monitor those rules because we can see who's violating those rules because Microsoft gives us the permission to do that. And if people are texting or whatever, then of course you have to give responsibility and ownership to the people as well. And your leaders need to understand the role that they play and the importance that of how they behave in the context of letting people have their lives. Because when you're working at home, especially one of the things that we saw was there were a lot of young parents, and when they were at home, the children were homeschooling as well.
That's right.
So they had to play that role of, being at work, looking after the children's school and homework, everything at the same time. So then what we started doing was telling people, call it out and say, I have a problem, plan your day out. So what we started doing was, while monitoring, putting some rules, some guidelines of how to behave at meetings and on calls, and monitoring to make sure that it happens. Also, we started opening things like helplines. We started having counseling sessions. We started having awareness sessions where people, if they felt under pressure, and because now my circumstances of working from home is very different to say yours, right? Now, I live alone, not live alone, I live with my partner, and but in a reasonably large house. I have 2 dogs. They are the only ones who disturb me. If I don't want to be disturbed, nobody disturbs me. I can stay in my room the whole day. Nobody will come and disturb. What if you live in a small apartment with 2 children and your in-laws and somebody else, and that is the reality of the circumstances of people we work with. So you have to provide opportunities for those. So what did we do? We offered them seats in the offices, outsourced offices, what do you call them? These workspaces that there are, the public workspaces that there are, where people can go and you can take a desk or whatever. So there are opportunities for people to go there. If they want, they can go to coffee shops, whatever it may be. And we started giving them the freedom to go and work from other locations within MAS as well. So if, for example, so we started creating hot desks in all the offices. So there are people who from other offices, for example, can come into CREDA and work from there if it's close to their house. If they want to get out of home. So we started providing opportunities like that as well. The other thing that we have done is, now one of the things that people were a little silly about when we started was work from home, which is to me utter bullshit, because whether you're working from home or whether you're seated on top of a tree and working, what does it matter? You're working. So we started calling it work from anywhere. And to set examples for what I did was I took my team, about 5 of us, my immediate team, my office, and we went to Vilpattu, and we worked out of Vilpattu for about 5 days.
Wow. Okay.
We were in a campsite outside Vilpattu, and we have done that. We are going to Hambegamu in about a couple of weeks, and we are going to be working from there. Then I go very often, and now next week I'm going to be in Horton Plains, but I know that the bungalow that I'm going to be at has signal, so it gives me the freedom to follow my passion of photography and be in the jungle when there are no other people are working, and at the same time balance my meetings out. So I plan my meetings in such a way that I have my meetings after 9 o'clock, so I can get out at 5:30 in the morning, go and do my photography till 8:30. By 9 I'm ready. I can have my meetings all day, finish my meetings at 4 o'clock in the evening, photograph in light fades at 6 o'clock. It's all about planning your day out. Of course, I'm at a level of the organization where I have a little more freedom to say what I want to say and do what I want to do. But I think it's also important that we allow other people. Now, when I do that, I also tell my colleagues, you have the freedom to do that as well. Be honest with us. Say, I want to go and play, I want to play Guru with my son, whatever. And do it. It's fine. We encourage that. We encourage people to be a part. The other thing about balancing life out is a lot of us are guilty of where is our social circle? Who's our social circle? The same people we work with.
Yeah.
Right? You go to work with the same lot of people, then you go in the evening for thundering drink with them, go home, come to work the next morning, then you want to go on holiday and you go with the same lot of people again. So where is that relief going to come from? Where is the quality of you as a human being going to grow from if you're in the same environment?
Yeah.
I take the example of a gene pool. If you start breeding out of the same gene pool, eventually the genes get weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker, and you have all kinds of other complications. So it's important that the gene pool is replenished with blood from outside. Whether it's in monkeys or donkeys or anything, that is what happens. It's the bloodline strengthens when you breed from outside. So all of us as individuals need to have multiple environments that we work in and people that we interact with, because we grow as individuals by the people we keep company of. We learn from them. I have amazing sets of friends. I have about 5 sets of friends, but they're all awesome. There's one set I ride bicycles with. There's one set I go to the jungle with. There's one set that I go and put a thundering drink with. There's another set that has been my school friends from the time we were 10. So, these add so much richness to me as an individual. I still have a long way to go as an individual, but I feel so much better for the company that I keep. Now, what if the only people that I hung out were the same 5 or 6 people that I work closely with in office? You see nothing apart from what's in that little environment. So that is very important. Create and cultivate an environment around yourself that's going to add value to you. You have to consciously develop yourself as an individual. Consciously develop yourself. Don't just get taken by your environment and let your environment do for you what it's going to do for you. You guide yourself through that. You create that. Interact with people who are intelligent, who are going to add value to you. Talk to your bosses who have different viewpoints. Find a mentor. I have had, 2 or 3 amazing mentors throughout my life. So that is really important.
I was actually thinking about what you said about having the friends who are working with, because we go out for a drink and then we say, we are not going to talk about work. And after 2 hours,
two drinks and you're talking about work.
Exactly.
It's like saying COVID protocol, we are going for a drink, but we are going to follow COVID protocol. What bloody nonsense. 2 drinks and everybody will talk about each other, selfies, and so you can't. It's the reality. You
That's
have to be
true.
real about it.
Exactly. So since you are here as our very first speaker, first webinar for the year, now we are going to deviate a little bit from the personal strategies or personal planning. So this question is about tips to manage and meet the business objectives or your given KPIs effectively? I know it's not the same for everybody, but I'm quite sure that you can give us some general tips.
I think there's a lot that's happening in the environment around us that is creating difficulties for all of us in our work environment. Right? Whether it's running around looking for gas, if you're running a restaurant, or, for example, I have a small investment in a restaurant, and every day the biggest problem that they have is they're running round and round in circles looking for gas. Or whether it's Mobitel or, whatever it is, there's a problem right now. So I think firstly, we need to look at the immediate issues that we have and try and find ways to get past those to be able to run our businesses as usual. I think it's really important that we look at that, because the environment is very, I don't want to use the word pessimistic, but it's a difficult environment that we're in right now. There are power cuts, there are, everything is, the vegetables are expensive, there's no petrol, there's no diesel, there's no Mobitel, there's no gas, there's no electricity, everything is a problem. If we start to dwell on those and look at all the negatives, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. I think it's important that we try and find solutions the best way possible and get beyond that. So as a short-term objective, I think continuity of our businesses are really important, that we ensure continuity of the businesses in whatever shape and form. Now, I will give you an example of what we did at MAS and at FRIDA. Is last year, for example, one of the biggest issues that we had was COVID. So as soon as somebody got infected with COVID, about 20, 30, 40 team members immediately had to stay at home, which meant that there was a massive vacuum or big gap in our capacity because there were no people. So how did you combat that? You can only do so much with COVID, because all these people live in environments at their home that you had no control over. Once they leave, you can control everything within the office. But once you go home, the mask is off and you're chatting with your brother who was in a school of 500 people, or your father who was in a police station, or whatever it may be. So then what we did was we decided that we'll recruit 20% more, about 10 to 20% more.
Okay.
And why? Because then you can fill the gaps in with the people who are excess. So you have excess cadre that you're carrying. So we made that decision to ensure continuity of our business. So I think that a short-term strategic plan was put in. How do we continue our businesses without disruption? And given the number of changes that we are seeing, when they are in the tourism industry, right now we're in the tourism industry and we are talking about, but right now there's a lot of talk about the tourism industry, how it's not earning money. I am going, tomorrow night, I'm going to a campsite that was clearly in a lot of trouble when the tourists weren't coming, but it's a beautiful place. And I was going there and I had booked 3 rooms. Or 3 tents, and I ultimately brought it down to 2 tents, and the person who made the booking said, I'm so relieved that you reduced the number of tents, because our staff, we don't have staff. So now what's happened here is now tourism is coming back, bookings are increasing, but people haven't been able to sort out their issues of staff having vanished and doing other things to survive. So
that's right.
We have to start trying to foresee these things and ensuring that when the business starts coming back, that we are ready for it. There's no point getting 29. I think as of today, they're having 29,000 tourists or something like that from mainly from Russia and India. We are probably paying them. But regardless, they are coming in. But if we have been shouting and saying we don't have tourists and we need the tourists to come back, and when the tourists are coming back, if we are not ready for it, we are missing opportunities. So I think it's really important that we try and preempt what's going to happen and prepare ourselves. Right? So there isn't a magic solution or anything that we can look at as something that fits everybody, I think. But what we need to do in an environment that is constantly changing and so dynamic right now is to be able to try and preempt what's coming and be ready for it.
Yeah. So we do have some, I'm mindful about the time. We have some questions from our audience. This particular question is an obvious question, but I'm quite sure that you are going to give a very blunt and a realistic answer for this. So because of that, I'm going to ask you. So this participant would like to know, what do you think of managing time in office? If office work is finished, is it right? Is it all right to do anything which is useful, or leave the office and enjoy the life?
If you have finished your work, bugger off. Don't bloody, sit around doing nothing. Just go. But of course, it's easy for me to say because, that we had authorized, it's an amazing cultural thing. When we started working when we formed, Creda is a new company. It's 4 years old. This is our 5th year of operation. And when we formed it, it was a fairly rigid kind of operation, and we wanted to change the culture. So we gave people the flexibility to work from home, go off early, take days off, take half a day off when they wanted. We gave them time flexibility and work flexibility. Nobody took time flexibility because they're worried that if they go off, their bosses and superiors will think, and he's not doing any work. So that culture has to change. Now what we have told people is, with the whole work from anywhere culture becoming deeply entrenched at Creda now, if you have 2 hours of work to do in office, come do your 2 hours and go home. So I think a lot of it depends on your own organizational culture. And unfortunately, most, if not, I would think like 90% of the organizations that I have seen in Sri Lanka are extremely rigid in the way that they work and extremely old-fashioned. They may be talking about being high-tech and futuristic in their outlook and all that. Utter bullshit. Everybody has to wear tie and come and sit at 8:30 in the morning and go home at 5:30 in the evening and mark their attendance and stand up and say yes or no. So when their boss walks in, and that culture is still there, and they're talking about being futuristic. You can't have both. So I think we have to look at the current environment. We have to give people the opportunities to balance their lives out and change with the times. People don't need to be like that. I mean, if there was such a war at MAS when we stopped wearing ties, we just said we're not going to wear ties anymore and got some t-shirts and decided that we're going to wear t-shirts, and that was it. So, but lots of people felt that the identity was gone, and they were like, executives are and that self-importance and all that, all those social hang-ups we have to get over, and we have to change the way we think. So if you have finished your work, tell your boss, I have finished my work, and go home. Or allow your people, you all are all I'm assuming there are a lot of senior people on this call. Allow your people to go home if they are finished. You save electricity, you save telephone time, otherwise everybody's, flying on computers and whatever, and waiting in office because they're marking time. I worked in an organization before. People would come down to the parking lot, look to see whether the boss's car was still in the parking lot. If the boss's car was still in the parking lot, they go back and sit down. And these were days before mobile phones. So then what happens? Then you're calling your girlfriend, and you're chatting with your girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever it is, till the boss's car goes. Boss's car goes, security guards comes and say, sir, yeah. And then everybody goes home. No point, no? You're ultimately it's a charade. And what happens? You're not doing any constructive work. You're staying away from your family, and quality time is being wasted. So
we have another question on, as you said, we should focus on good life and career should be used to support that. Then what about people following on and adding qualifications to their profiles? There is no end. People adding more and more qualifications, and most of the time that they spend on that. I believe this is a personal preference, but open for you, sir.
Yeah, so this one is an interesting question, right? There are some people, now we all have personal desires, and there are hobbies that we have. There are things that we are passionate about. For me, it's the outdoors, it's photography, it's spending time with my family. For some people, it's studying, it's learning, it's getting qualifications. So if it's a thing that you're deeply passionate about, and you have that hunger to learn and hunger to study, I know people at my age who have still continuously been studying something, which is amazing. Fine, if they're achieving what they want in life and they're happy and their aspirations are being fulfilled, then by all means. But I think if people are studying and just gathering qualifications, thinking that that's going to bring them success, then that is where we have to try and put things in perspective. Are qualifications actually going to bring you success? There are situations where people are overqualified for jobs, but ultimately, it's about how you use your qualification to actually add value to what you're doing. There are lots of extremely qualified people that I know who are bloody useless in a work environment. And likewise, there are people who have barely passed their A-levels who are brilliant at what they do. So there are different ways that you can use the skills of all these people, but qualifications becomes a very personal thing. And the reason why you're going after these qualifications, you need to be clear on. Because you can have all I know somebody with 3 master's degrees and he's now working on a PhD. But her career hasn't really progressed any faster than it would have under normal circumstances. So then why? She absolutely loves to learn. Fair enough.
Yeah. What do you think about meditation? Is it a useful tool for a professional development as well? I know that for a matter of fact that you are doing yoga, but I don't know whether you meditate.
I try to do yoga, and I try to meditate as well, because I really feel that meditation is an extremely powerful tool, not just for personal development, but in any environment. Because what is meditation? Meditation is being able to center your mind and to bring focus. So imagine, I don't know how many of you all have heard of Siddharth Petun. Siddharth Petun is your open batting for Sri Lanka. He's a top cricketer, and really, really nice guy. And I spent some time with him. We went to Yala together a long time ago, about 30 years ago. And I was talking to him because he's deeply into meditation. He was a vegetarian. And what he told me is like, Machang, if you're watching a movie, everything is moving fast. But think about watching a movie 1 frame at a time. If you can see every frame clearly of what's going on with no distraction, he said that's what meditation can do to you, do to your mind. It helps you really focus on whatever you're focusing. So I think being able to meditate, being really good at meditation, is a really sharp tool to have in your armory in any environment. It will make you a better person. It will make you a better listener. It will make you calmer, and probably help you in your business environment as well. It's like, to me, meditation is like doing exercises, like being physically fit or whatever it is for your mind. So it's a vital aspect of, if you can develop that skill and become really good at it, it will really help you. I struggle. I sit down for about 5 minutes and about 10,000 thoughts have gone through my head. So I am trying to get there, and I hope that before I die off, I will be able to develop some skill, but it's a tough one.
Before you said that, I was going to actually ask you whether you have any tips, but I'll hold that thought.
No, but again, I think, the only tip that I have is don't give up. Don't give up, because there was a period in my life where I used to meditate quite a bit, and I used to just sit down and wait, and you find that after a while you can, maybe first it's 30 seconds, then it's a minute, then it's 2 minutes. You can gradually start centering your mind, focusing your mind. It happens just like anything else. You start running, you go for a run. The first day you'll run 25 meters and fall flat on your face. But there is also a time where, you continue to do that, and it will be great.
Great. So we'll take one last question. What are the new skills that you expect from your team with the post-COVID era?
I think adapting to change is the one that I find that I'm really looking for right now, because there are lots of people who struggle with change, who struggle with trying to find solutions, who are trying to work in a dynamic environment. They get rattled because they want structure. They want everything to be designed nicely for them. I like people who can now see opportunities in this environment, who can see opportunities in the chaos, who are not afraid of finding ways to use technology and leverage technology on moving forward. It's just personal stuff from my point of view. and it may not be applicable to other organizations, but I certainly look for people who don't get rattled in a chaotic situation. That's what I'm looking for right now. And right now, I'm seeing a lot of people at very senior level totally bloody rattled because they don't know what the hell is going on. What are we going to do? There's no this, there's no that. Fine. Everybody is rattled. Find some solution instead of just saying, I can't do this, I can't do that. That's really important. Being able to work in the chaos and find solutions. Stay calm. Meditate.
Yeah. Thanks, Arinda. It's always a pleasure to do these sessions with you. It's very insightful, and also I learn a lot from you as well in these conversations. Love it.
Likewise, I enjoyed the chat. Thank you.
Kavisha, over to you. Kavisha, we can't hear you.
Can I get off?
Just for a second,
yeah, sure,
Sarinda. No,
Kavisha is on mute. Kavisha is on mute.
You're on mute, Kavisha. Unmute yourself. Yeah.
All right, Niroshi. So I would like to thank you, our guest speaker today, Mr. Sarindunamwe, for sharing a very, very interesting and informative webinar with lots of real-life experience and stories. Hope you all got a good understanding on the importance of having personal and professional planning. So we hope all of you will stick to your New Year resolutions and achieve your plans throughout the year. Also, I would like to thank the host today, Ms. Niroshi Sirivansa, the head of Business School and the Member Relations of CA Sri Lanka, for making this session very interactive. And a big thank you for all the participants present here on behalf of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka and on behalf of the CPD committee. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
Thanks, Kavisha. Thanks, Arinda. Have a great day.
Thank you.